Lately, BMW and Lexus have been fighting for the top spot as the best small luxury SUV in the market. And in today's video, we're gonna be comparing the BMW X3 to the Lexus NX. And let me tell you this, one of these is old money and one of these is that modern new money. Stick around to the end to figure out which one it is. I'm Justin Mason from Performance Lexus in St. Catharines. Make sure you hit like and subscribe for more Lexus related content. Okay, so let's get started by admiring the front end of both of these luxurious SUVs. And the one that sticks out the most is definitely this BMW grille. And I use the term grille very loosely because now, even though we still have that massive kidney shape, it's actually more of a decoration than an actual grille. And we're starting to see this a little bit with everything like EV cars that you don't actually need as much cooling in. And that design language has sort of filtered into more aerodynamics and less actual big shape holes in the front of the car. But BMW did a good job of making it so look like a grille. We have some flat pieces here. It's interesting that the front-facing camera is actually asymmetrical. It's off to the one side. That's the first time I've seen that in any of the luxury cars. However, I'm sure the vehicle is smart enough to make it seem center when you're actually looking through it. So we have these big grills, and then at the bottom we have an actual active grill, and I can see by when I stick my hands in, I can see these little flaps that open and close at different speeds. I'm sure that is to get the most fuel economy and the most cooling or whatever the vehicle needs. I also love the BMW squareness. Like for a smaller SUV, this has a huge presence, and especially with that outline daytime running lights around the grille. The BMW daytime running lights don't just stop at the kidney grills. We also have these swooping sort of LEDs down the side, as well as almost like a triple beam LED headlight setup. I like that BMW always brands its headlights, and this one says BMW LED at the side, and there's a little bit of a shape decoration as well. Over to the Lexus. So this is not a sport package, and because of that, we still have that straight vertical up and down sort of hatching on that luxury executive style grille. And then the daytime running lights that are just above the triple beam headlights, which by the way, both of these cars are amazing at nighttime because of that LED technology. We have a little bit of grays. This is the nori green color. So it kind of gives a really nice classic contrast between the two, hence the old money, and a little bit of black trim sort of towards the outside of it. In terms of front ends, I mean, both of them for being small SUVs, especially the NX, which when you think about is smaller than the RX grille, but the front end is actually a little bit larger, which gives a nice presence to the two. And both of them definitely demand a little bit of presence. However, the BMW is just that little bit of extra. And I think you'll see that as we go through the rest of the vehicle. So in terms of hood lines, instead of having these big lines down the center of it, the BMW actually just has this cute little nose around its BMW logo. And I think we're gonna see that into some more designs for other models in the BMW lineup. In terms of the Lexus, we have that swooping vision line that sort of starts at that nose and goes around to the back. And actually the hood on the Lexus is a lot smaller than the X3, and that's gonna be something people are gonna say in the comments, is why are you comparing these two cars when the X3 is gonna be a little bit more squared off, a little bit bigger than the NX, but somehow, I promise you it'll all make sense. Okay, so before I get into the side profile, let's talk about the wheel setup. So on the X3, and this one is the M package, obviously, we have a 21-inch wheel versus the Lexus 20-inch wheel and a much wider stance. So we have 255 width on the front of the X3 and 285 on the rear, meaning that we have a staggered setup, which is great for performance, and that's what this car screams is high performance. However, it's not the best for getting things like winter tires, rotating those tires so they last longer, where the Lexus or the 235s is gonna be more of a square setup where you can rotate them, you can really get the most mileage out of those. I will say the brake setup on the other side of this wheel is amazing. It's absolutely wild. We have a huge blue brake caliper with the M logo on it and a massive disc brake that is like what we see in some of our highest performance Lexus, and it has some really good stopping power for this BMW. Okay, so for the side profile, one of the things that I love about the BMW is we don't have any of those fake decorations that we've seen on other models. Instead, we just get that really cool classic little M badge on that fender. Nothing fake about that. Now, as we walk past these two cars, I will say the BMW is a little bit taller, a little bit more squared off. Body lines, nothing too crazy, except for this mirror has this wild sort of like air intake looking shape to it, I guess you could say. And being it's the M baggage, everything is all blacked out, which I really like. And then we go to the NX, which has some body lines. We have some at the top and at the bottom. No decorations on the side. However, we have some chrome here. So we have chrome around both windows as well as a little bit on the mirror. And of course, one of my favorite features is that electronic door latch where it's just super easy to open and close that all digitally. On the BMW, it's just a normal door handle. And the door itself, super solid. There's nothing wrong with that. As we walk to the back, you'll see the NX will start to slope off a little bit. The X3 seems to do it more rapidly and has a little bit more square shape to it, but still somehow just feels bigger as you go to the back. Okay, so the back of the BMW is absolutely wild. And the rear end of luxury cars is always one of my favorite things to admire because when someone's a couple car lengths behind you, that's what they're gonna see, right? So the taillights, super sharp, really nice modern design on sort of the current BMW lineup. And then the geometry of that rear hatch. So we have angles coming out of everywhere. We have some really modern shapes. Interesting exposed wiper right in the middle, and that glass is actually quite tiny when you think about it. I know I'm not a measuring tape or anything like that. However, it's, you know, quite small, but usually all it needs to be is big enough for your rearview mirror anyway. Then we sort of see the M50 badge. We have that BMW logo, the X3 logo, and a little bit of decoration at the bottom here with some of the nicest integrated quad exhausts that I've seen. It fits really nicely into that rear bumper. It almost lines up right with the bottom, blends in nicely. I love that BMW is still showing an exhaust because all these other brands are just trying to tuck those in and hide them away because of future design language coming. So the mindset behind that with some of the other brands is that if cars in the future are gonna be full EVs, well, they don't wanna be driving a car with an exhaust at the back. And BMW has taken a very different approach. Over to the Lexus, however, we have a very sharp taillight design, a little bit more spread out than some of the other models. So we have that left side, and then it sort of gets split up to that katana that goes across that big LEXUS in the back, and then over to the right side, NX350, a couple shapes and decorations, things like this bumper guard, and then towards the bottom, just a really plain, classy looking bottom of the bumper with that exhaust tucked nicely underneath. You can't really see it too much, especially in the hybrids and any of the non-F Sports for sure. And there is a little bit of piano black decoration. The rear glass on this versus the X3 is a huge difference. It's almost double the size. However, that doesn't necessarily mean double the vision. It's just something to point out, that's all. Okay, so let's check some of that trunk space for the X3. I'm expecting it to be a little bit bigger because it's more squared off than the Lexus. And for the most part, I'm right. I mean, we have a little bit of angle at the top. However, it is pretty straight up and down for the most part. Depth-wise, it's not crazy, but for a small SUV, it's definitely more than enough. We have a very hefty tonneau cover that goes forward and back, a little bit of storage under that fake floor, no spare tire that I can see. However, it looks like there could be enough space, so maybe certain models do have that. And I think, yep, a little bit of a grocery hook and a 12-volt charging port. I don't see any way to fold down those rear seats back here, but that's not the end of the world either. Let's compare it to the Lexus. Again, decent sized space. We lose a little bit of the upper end space because of the angle of the hatch. However, a friend of mine once said you should buy a car for what you're gonna use 80% of the time instead of just the 20% that you're gonna use things. So I think if you're gonna be stacking boxes 80% of the time, you're probably gonna go for a bigger SUV anyway. So this will be more than enough for most people. It is a soft tonneau cover. I'm not sure the mindset on that if there's a benefit to one or the other. However, it does fold up nicely and you can place it under that fake floor, which is quite convenient. And there is a huge storage space under the front of that fake floor that you could fit tons and tons of stuff. Same thing, we have some grocery hooks on either side, and most models have the power folding rear seats where you have a little switch, you can press a button, they'll fold down. So if you do have something bigger that you need to put in there, it's quite easy to do so. Okay, so getting in this X3, this is a totally redesigned car for 2025. So there is a lot of modern amenities here to go over, and some of them are absolutely wild and took me a while to even realize what they are. So for starters, the door, super solid to close. The materials around it are very modern with sort of just like a textured black. However, what you notice the most of is these light panels. And I can't remember what BMW calls them. However, they are everywhere. We have one below the screen. We have one wrapping around these cup holders. I've seen this in like the new BMW M5, and it's totally customizable and it gives a really like nightclub vibe to the interior. And I think there's a mindset behind it that it also keeps you awake at nighttime. I could be wrong. Let me know in the comments if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that is the case. The other big thing that you're gonna notice is this centerpiece here. So instead of the classic center console, we have like these platforms sort of, where a couple cup holders, which is great, and then these bigger pads that are on an angle for things like wireless charging for your phone, but there's also some space for other things. Couple USB-Cs, and that's all trimmed by one of those light bars. And of course, the little M logo in the center. It's amazing how much space that takes up, but I mean, it's pretty functional, which is why it's so modernized, I guess you could say. In the center, we now have the gear shift, which is like, it reminds me of like a window switch where it's like, you know, click, 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 click up. So to put it in drive, for instance, you click it down twice, like you would push your window switch down twice to do a full roll down. And then park, you just hit the P. There is a few other like soft touch buttons here. They're not physical buttons, but home, media, telephone, all of the things to control that screen, along with this BMW remote wheel, which is actually pretty easy to use. What I found is that it has a touch screen and you can do that, and then you can sort of fine tune it with this wheel, which is quite nice. And then when you get up close to the wheel, you realize there is some artistic decor built into it, and it's all glass, so you can kind of see through it to that decor. And then the decor sort of fades into the black as you sort of zoom out and look. We also have some drive modes and some shortcuts here in the center, which is always great because I find my arm is resting here anyway. Why not use it for something? And one of the nicest things, which is a classic volume wheel. So really quick to be able to turn up and down your volume, all from this center console. The armrest, I mean, nothing to write home about there, just a regular standard issue armrest. However, what's not standard issue and is one of the coolest, more modern takes on something is how to control the vents. I know that sounds silly, but I'm really excited about this. It's like this little joystick wheel here underneath the vents that you sort of move up and down and then left and right. And it's all rubber and grippy and very high quality. And that's how you control the vents in a really quick manner. And those are everywhere. They're on the sides, they're in the middle, they're in the back. All of them have that same control. And above that, we now have sort of a haptic slidey wheel is what I call it. And that's how you control how much air is coming out of said vents. So it's 0 to 1 and then everywhere in between. And then we have our shortcuts for front defrost, rear defrost, and of course our 4-ways, which by the way, changes most of the colors to red to remind you that, hey, you're probably in a hazard right now. I will also say the sound of this car and what it makes is one of the best things about these new BMWs. Even pressing that, instead of like a hard clicking noise, it's really soft and like kind of more like a thump, if anything. And same thing when I got in here and was parking it in the showroom today. When I got close to other objects, that beeping, instead of being a sharp beep, was really musical, I would say. Almost as if an orchestra was telling me to slow down and not get too close to one of the objects, which I thought was really nice. Then we have this new screen. It reminds me of like those Samsung LED curved screens. Very sharp, really easy to use. I always try not to diss a car company on their multimedia system without using it for like a week or two, because these systems are designed not for like someone just to do a quick YouTube review and be able to know how to use it, but instead to use for every day and find out more and more features as you own the car. And because of that, it seems super easy to use. I mean, I'm used to the Lexus world, which is not as many layers to the system as this. However, I was able to find my way around quite easy. You can customize it. Your heated seats and heated controls are all integrated in there as well. And that wasn't too bad for me to figure out either. So really nice display there. I can't decide if I'm a fan, as I adjust my fan speed, no pun intended, of how it's all connected to that instrument display. So that's what's on the other side of the steering wheel. You can customize it and it is very HD. However, it is like looking at a TV. So I know that's super futuristic and very modern and reminds me of a spaceship. However, I don't know if I love that as much as some of the other ones, and I'll show you why later. But again, very easy to use. I don't think it's touch at all, no, which is good because you don't want to be touching that as you drive. Lots of different customizable layouts by the looks of it. Very, very much a spaceship, and there's even things like augmented reality and stuff like that. So if you're one of those people who want the latest and greatest tech, that gives me that type of vibe for sure. On the paddle shifters, we have some grip on the back and some red rubber, which is kind of nice. We get that red line down the center because this is an M50 and deserves a little bit of M performance type things. And also the flat bottom steering wheel just screams that. It is a mild hybrid, so on the left paddle shifter, it does say boost, which I'm sure has something to do with that, and overall feels really good. Now, one of the craziest things is actually on the door. So there's this like X3 logo here, and that's where the door handle is. It's like a plastic door handle, it's nothing crazy. But in front of that, we have our lock and unlock button, which sort of just rocks a whole panel. So you press lock, it rocks that panel back. You press unlock, it rocks it forward. And then there's a haptic sort of slidey thing again. And I had all of my staff in this car, and we were all trying to figure out what does that do? Well, it turns out that is also your fan speed for this side. So there is a fan on that side of the steering wheel, and that's how you control that fan speed. I did have to Google that, so if you're owning one of these cars and you're wondering what that is, I hope your salesperson told you because I didn't know. And the other interesting thing is even though it has a panel roof, it doesn't open. It's a solid piece of glass, which, if I'm being honest with myself, most consumers don't open their sunroof. From what I found anyway, they just use it for the light. So it probably makes for a quieter ride, the fact that it doesn't have an extra moving panel up there. But it is something to note if you're looking at this car. The seats are super comfortable, although this is when we start to feel or remind ourselves that we are in a smaller SUV because they're quite narrow, I would say that. Under the thigh support is unbelievable, and BMW does a great job at that. I'm 6'1", my butt is all the way back on the seat, and that under thigh support is actually going past my kneecaps. It is manual, so you do have to slide it manually. And also I did notice the steering wheel telescoping is also manual. So those are two manual things in this package at least. Okay, so sitting in the back of the X3, the space-wise, I'm actually really impressed with. It is a very tall car, and I noticed that with the BMW SUVs is they do a good job of making it so that you have a lot of space above you, and it's a very squared off design. In terms of amenities, I see some rear shades, which is great for a small SUV to have. We do have an armrest that can come down and lock into place instead of just drooping all the way down. There's a cup holder in there. It seems to be a good height. These seats don't recline back. I did notice that. So although they fold down pretty flat, they don't recline back. So that's something you'll have to live with. But like I said, I have lots of room above me, so you wouldn't have to anyway. And then we have some cool vents here. So we have still that new design of moving vents around, which is super cool. It doesn't have the haptic slidey thing like in the front seat. And then we have a touch screen back here to be able to control things like the heated seats back here, as well as that climate control. And then there's this little receiver in the back of the front seats, which if I remember correctly is for accessories like the jacket holder, coat hanger thing. I did notice on the side panels here, it's a little bit cheaper, which for most people is gonna be okay. There's no high quality materials on this door panel whatsoever. It's mainly just plastic. However, again, most people aren't gonna notice that anyway. And the rear seats still have that same Alcantara that's at the front as well. So as long as you're okay with the door panels not having that, I mean, the space alone for a small SUV is really impressive. So sitting back in the NX, this is the macadamia interior, which what we're seeing right now is a lot of interior trends are more to the lighter, the off-whites, the grays, and the warm whites. Where a couple years ago, it was all about Rioja red and circuit red and these red interiors. Now it's becoming more about light interiors. And this one being the macadamia, it is like an off-white and it holds up very well for being such a light interior, and it's contrasted nice because everything else is sort of like dark grays and blacks. So I am a really big fan of that. Shutting the door, I'm reminded that how much I love that electronic door latch. So it's really easy to get in and out, no fuss, just press one button and in one sweep move. And then we have some nice wood grain, but just on, it's like a modern wood grain, just on the door panels themselves. In the center here, we have some grays and some piano black with the electronic shifter. So all you do is put it into gear, let go, and it snaps back. So it's a little bit more classic to some of the push button and slides that I'm seeing for shifters. This is more like your traditional shifter, although it is totally electronic. So it's still working the way that the new shifters work, but sort of doing it in the same motion as like an older shifter. Then in the center, we just have a few buttons, nothing too crazy. There's no controls here. It's just traction control off, one of the train selects. You can override that automatic on and off on this one, and downhill assist. And then of course the electronic parking brake hold is there. The armrest opens from either side, which is quite nice, and it's in a very good spot. And then we have our wireless charger up here with a little cavity that you can put a few extra things in. And we have an actual switch. It's like a wheel that you spin for eco, normal, and sport modes, which is nice because in some of our other models, you have to like go through the different layers of screen. And on this one, it's pretty easy. Above that, we have our auto park feature. So this is one of the things about Lexus is even though we have those high-end amenities, they're tucked away nicely. So you press that button, the car can park itself. You press the other button, you can have it so the bird's eye view comes on, and you can see a few different angles for parking, etc. Then we have our new Lexus multimedia display, which has made things a lot easier for us because it's got that modern take, really crisp colors, really easy to use. It is a touch screen, and you're gonna use it in conglomerate with your Apple CarPlay, your Android Auto. And even though there is a lot of features packed into here, there's some shortcuts for them. So you can go into this quick screen, turn on things like proactive driving assist or any of those standard safety features, as well as just get out of it, control your heated and cooled seats, your heated steering wheel, all of that through that screen. It's really easy to use and set up, and it's not too far from you to be able to touch. And once it's set up, you're gonna use the steering wheel controls anyway, which by the way, on most of our packages, especially the ones with heads-up display, are gonna be the intelligent version. So you can actually customize what they do. You can see them on that heads-up display, and it really unlocks the potential to use these buttons to control most of the car, which is nice. A big difference between this and the X3 is that screen, that gauge cluster. And what I've noticed comparing the two is our gauge cluster on the Lexus is tucked in, and because of that, it's got like this dark dome around it. I'm sure that's for glare and things like that, but also what I've noticed is instead of being like an HD screen like the center multimedia display, it's got more texture to it. So it sort of reminds me of the old MFD displays where it was almost like reverse color, like the liquid crystal display. And what I like about that is it's not as straining on the eyes, it's still very sharp, and it's not overly bright, and you can still see colors and very dynamic signs and stuff like that. So again, a lot of people will get really hung up on screens, but I prefer this over a big screen in my face any day. But to each their own, let me know what you think. And other than that, everything is just, you know, very classy and timeless inside. Not as many lights or ambient lighting. You can change some of the ambient lighting, but what Lexus calls it is indirect ambient lighting. So instead of actually seeing the source of the light, you can kind of just see the reflection. And there's not a ton of that, just enough to give a little bit of dimension here during nighttime. And we also, how could I forget, have the electronic rear mirror as well. So there is that camera in the back that you can just flip a switch, have that rear view mirror, and shut it down when you don't want it. Okay, so getting in the back seat of the NX, I will say there is less amenities than the X3. Even though this is the fully loaded one, we don't have the sunshade like the X3 does, but we do have things like wood grain and some soft materials on the door panel, which I'm happy to see. The Mark Levinson logo, a little bit of wood grain, an armrest that still clicks into place. It's thick, it has a nice leather to it. And we still have heated seats back here, and then also some vents, although you can't control the actual climate. It's not like a third climate zone like in the X3 and in the RX. However, they are still there. Comfort-wise, I have a decent amount of space. My hair is tickling just that cover above me just a little bit. However, I can recline a little bit, and that was something that you can't do on a lot of the other ones, is you can just reach down here, just like an airplane seat. You have a little bit extra angle to your back, so if you needed to have a nap back here, it's totally doable. Now, at this point in the video, you're probably thinking, okay, Dustin, what about the powertrains? Well, the truth is both models have so many different options for that. On the Lexus side, most of the ones we're selling is gonna be the NX 350h, and the 350 plug-in is like more of a specialty one. However, hybrids and that true multi-stage hybrid is becoming the norm. On the BMW side, we are definitely seeing some more horsepower with turbochargers and mild hybrids and everything sort of combined into one for that spirited driving that BMW is well known for. Now, this begs the question, which one is which? And this is going to depend on what you consider luxury. We have the old money, nori green on macadamia, timeless design of the Lexus, where the interior doesn't have as many bells and whistles, but is super classy and easy to use. Or we have the new kid on the block, the Yeezys of the car world, and that is the BMW with all of that nice ambient lighting, all of the features packed into those really big screens, some really cool new takes on old features, like even how the vents work. And that's like, to me, the new money, or like the new kid on the block. The one that wants to be flashy and bold versus the one that would rather have that subtle luxury to it. So let me know in the comments below which one you prefer and what you think luxury is. I'm Dustin Mason. Big shout out to Performance BMW for letting us use this X3, and hopefully we'll do some more videos soon.